All right, everybody. We got Sam Coleman in the house. He's going to be one of our panelists for our upcoming YPN meeting on March 13th. Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself and more of your story.
Who is Sam Coleman? Sam Coleman is a retired basketball player. I sound terrible. I don't like to talk about myself. Like, I'm a big dude and I intimidate people. So like, to get me to talk about myself, like, it just feels so braggadocious. And I'm not saying that I'm not being facetious or anything. It's weird to like talk to a microphone in the camera and be like, I am all these great things and you don't know that I am really just like you, but I look important because I got a microphone.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. But I guess I'm a family man. I'm a big faith believer. To me, this industry, real estate, has absolutely changed my life. So I would say my faith in God. Sam is a person that believes in faith in God. Family man, my wife, my children are everything to me. And then sales and real estate has absolutely changed my life. If I could boil my life down to those three things, then it'd be little branches like golf, wine, and the gym. Little things like that.
Yeah, nice.
That's really who I am. That's all I do.
Las Vegas is one of the best places to golf, and I've seen you on the golf course myself. I know that's something that, is bringing a lot of relocation people here. Mm-hmm. For those who are agents that have families as big as yours and, are out there, maybe on the golf course or just out in the wild or the field, some of the agents maybe haven't closed as many deals as they've done in the last coming years. Maybe they're veterans and their dynamic has changed. What have you done to kind of help yourself get through that with your clients, with the uncertainty in the market? And what is something you can share with people who are watching this to kind of just stay in the game?
Obviously, the market and the industry has shifted a lot and on all fronts over the last couple of years. And for me to stay consistent and continuously build my business and grow and be successful in the industry and service my clients, the number one thing that I've done is seek new information, always learning and looking at opportunities to get new information so that I can service my clients. And if it gives me an advantage to, get another listing or let's say help another buyer, that's just a byproduct of me getting that information and utilizing it and leveraging it to help my client. It's just a byproduct of that. So I don't necessarily look at the transaction or the deals that I'm able to do. I'm looking at the value that I'm able to provide to clients.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think that agents that are out there right now, maybe they're gathering their information, they don't really know, and they're going to meet us at our next meeting on March 13th and kind of see these habits that you have that other people can learn from and maybe implement that in their daily routine or their weekly routine. What is a high producer like yourself doing during the weekday that you think is different from anyone else?
The things that I do different than other agents to be a high producing agent, I would say, is I do the things that other people aren't willing to do. I don't have the connections and background that I can lean on. So I'm an ex-professional athlete. So I know what it takes to be good at something. I understand the value of having a coach and having a mentor, and then the repetition of doing a thing for a long period of time. Like, I can watch the pace of grass grow. Like, I don't care. I eat the same thing every day. I'm just consistent, and I am obsessive about like details when it comes to my business. So like on a day-to-day, weekly basis, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's worked and I know what works. So I just do more of what works. And most of the time it's work itself. And that's what most people don't want to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that get into this industry, they become a realtor, maybe they left hospitality or they were an athlete prior, and they think that they don't need to do the work or, show up and negotiate and things like that.
They just want to do it as a part-time thing.
Yeah.
Sam, you mentioned that you're a family guy. You have kids, wife at home. Do you find it hard to balance your work life?
No, I don't think, I don't believe in balance. So the short answer is I don't find it difficult to balance my work and life because there's no such thing in my opinion. It's a juggling act. There's seasons where if you look at the 4 seasons that we have in summer, school's out. So I get to go on vacation with my family. I spend a lot of time with my kids. We're outside. And in the winter, we bundle up gain a little weight. You know, I'm spending time with my family indoors. We're not going out as much, but I have more time where I could work from home and I could be with my family. And then there are seasons where it's like the spring, there's seed time and there's harvest time. Everything has its an appropriate place. And there are seasons where I don't get to be home as much. But I've created boundaries around my business where I will not sacrifice the relationships that I have with my wife and my children for my business. So one of my favorite verses in the Bible is, what good is it for the man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? So I can sell every house in this town, but if my kids don't love me, that would be a regret that I would have at the end of my life. So I don't necessarily balance it.
Yeah.
I make sure that things are put in their appropriate time and place.
I like that you're prioritizing your family and having those boundaries. But what is that one thing that you cannot give up in order to be successful like you?
The one thing that I will not give up is prospecting. Always be prospecting. People say always be closing, always be prospecting. And I think it's an underrated skill. And that comes from a level of awareness and understanding of the job that we do for a living. And when you're prospecting and understanding that every person with a heartbeat is a prospect. My 6-year-old daughter is a prospect. She may not be buying a home now, but she will someday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, when you think like that, it's like, hey, if I service people and I understand that I'm always prospecting, the value that I provide will become, it will be returned at some point. And it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow. It may be 27 years from now when my daughter's of age. I don't know. But I'll never let that go, regardless of what I do with the rest of my life.
I like that.
I love that you said 27 years and she's 6.
Yeah.
She would be of age before that.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
but in a dad's eyes, they're always a little girl.
You're picking up what I'm putting down. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I like to, instead of just getting new clients, you're keeping that relationship with your clients that you're closing, because you're not just selling them a home. You can sell you're prospecting their children too, and you're teaching them. So you want to keep that close relationship. How do you stay in touch with your clients?
Systems and processes. There's a quote that says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And it's just a systems thing. You know, if you get into this industry thinking that, hey, I want to sell a bunch of houses and you want to be transactional, you can do that. And then you'll work until you can't do it anymore. I mean, I think that's inevitable. But if you want to maintain relationships and have an actual business that doesn't require you to grind so much, and you want that referral and repeat business, you have to have systems where you love on your clients and they understand that it's not just a transaction. The relationship is the most valuable thing. And that comes with that is the job, right? It's stewardship of what you've been given. It's a gift. It's a blessing that you get to work with. We get to work with some incredible people in this town.
Yeah.
And how arrogant and how foolish of us to think that, like, hey, I got this deal. Ha ha ha. Let me run to the bank. And now you leave with the money, but you lose the relationship.
Yeah.
When you service the people and you have systems and processes in place that are more valuable than just the commission, you get both.
So we're all trying to have good relationships with our clients, get a lot of clients. But have you ever turned down a client before?
Oh, yes. A lesson, this is I would probably say, I guess, a 3rd generation lesson. So my mentor, Ivan Shear, gave a lesson that he learned from Florence Shapiro that she had learned. The best deal that they've ever done is the one that they walked away from. And I've had just recently a client that I could not hit send on cancellation of listing fast enough. Like, I was in my mind, I'm like, I can't wait this is a nightmare, right? Like, I don't value the deal or the commission more than I value my sanity. And I had, like I said before, I have guardrails and I have boundaries in my business. When you start messing with my faith, I'm in church on Sunday and I got my phone on do not disturb, and you hit some notify anyway, you cross the line. And then you keep doing it over and over. No, now we got a problem.
We get one day.
We
get one day.
An accident, maybe.
Okay. I love it.
No, but seriously, like, it's opportunities that are disguised in work clothes that sometimes we forget what's really important. And when you're in the thick of it, you notice that maybe this is not worth it. And I've had quite a few of those in recent years as my priorities have changed. If I was, starting out in business, There were times where I should have 100% walked away from a client or let the client go or cancel the deal or, just not done it at all. But because I was so hungry for the business, I tolerated it, and it cost me more than what I had earned in the commission. Right.
Yeah. You said something very interesting, and I think that people value the one, production that you've done in your career, and two, just your expertise when it comes to turning down clients. And you've set great boundaries with your business, which is why you're very successful. How can you share to the people watching this how you can kind of see that red flag of are they overstepping my boundaries? Is this a client that I should walk away from? Not all the time. Is it, commission only focus, but for, your part-time agents or maybe someone who hasn't done a deal in a long time, they don't really necessarily have a choice. But you mentioned that it cost you more. What do you mean by that?
Incredible question. So 2-part answer. It cost me more because when I think about the value of my time, I understand that as a real estate agent, I am paid in direct connection to the value that I provide to my clients. If I'm not able to do it, there's 15,000 other people that could do the same exact thing that I'm currently doing, right? So there's a fine line that I walk on. If I choose to do a transaction that can be done by 15,000 other people, but it costs me my time, my sanity, sleep with my family, or any of that, because I understand the value of my time, why would I spend my time working with a person that's costing me valuable time to exchange it for one commission check when there are almost 3 million people here? I think it was something like 85 or 90,000 commission checks that went out. Why am I going to cost myself the opportunity of working with an incredible person that I can develop a relationship with that'll last a long time, and I actually enjoy golfing with, spending time with, introducing to my kids with, drinking wine with, with a person that's just giving me a headache for a commission? That the value time exchange proposition, it doesn't make sense.
It's not adding up.
It's not adding up. The math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mathing. I love it.
So I'm like, that's a hard no for me. It's very clear. But I've also, I guess the short answer to that is, I know when to walk away because I know the standard, and I'm very clear on what I want my life to look like and how I want to spend my time.
Yeah. I think it's tough as a newer agent to set those boundaries. Not everyone has funds coming in. They kind of go into this full force. Maybe it's their second career, or even if they're a little bit older. I think it's a different scenario for most people.
Yeah.
What was something that kind of kicked off starting to set boundaries for yourself? You mentioned clients that, maybe call you on Sundays or, overstep those. When you're initially meeting with these people for the first time, how do you explain that to them, as an agent?
Yeah. So, to be clear, I do work on weekends. However, it's by choice, not because I have to. So there's a couple that I got done with church, went to brunch with my family, and then decided to go show a client some homes because I wanted to. I'm like, I freaking love these people, and it's not even anything special, but it was I don't mind doing it. Because I'm serving from a place of I want to, and it's nothing for me to do it. It's the time that I would spend with my kids. They're going to go take a nap. Then we're going to go play. Then we went and ended up playing golf in the afternoon. But I can do that with these people because I thoroughly enjoy it. Versus if it was another client, I'm be like, listen, Monday after 9 a.m. after I make my calls, sure, right?
Yeah.
But I will. It's like a la carte. But as a new agent, if I was a new agent and I needed to set boundaries, I think there's a tax that has to be paid. And it's the ignorance tax. As a new agent, you don't know what you don't know. And I don't think as a new agent, you're trying to figure out what to do, and you're drinking from a fire hydrant. So boundaries and standards aren't even on the forefront of their mind, right? There's so much to understand and learn in this industry to start out. Who do you go to for what? How do you even do it? How do I get clients? And once I get a client, then what? It's so much. And people get overwhelmed. And maybe your boundaries are a mile wide, right? Because you're like, hey, I got nothing but time. I ain't got no money. I'm trying to do a deal. I answer, I'm 24/7, right? And then as you do transactions and your life changes, because also at that time when I first started, I had come off of, I was an Uber driver. Like I had lost everything and I'm driving for Uber and I had no money. So it was like, listen, I will sell anything to anybody, right? If I was around in 2005, listen, you got a heartbeat? Come on, let's sign you up right now. You know what I mean? But my boundaries started to change as my life started to change as well. Once me and my wife got married, I was like, wait a minute, I got to take care of this woman. So I'm going to go to work every day. I am going to implement the discipline that I've implemented to basketball my entire life. I'm going to do that right now. And I made a promise to my wife. And I want to give you a return on your investment because you believed in me when there was nothing. And then over time, I got burned out. And it was like, hey, all I do is work. And then I realized that I just replaced basketball with real estate. And my work became my new hobby. And then it was like, all right, I'm going to go golf to relieve stress. And then that became more stressful. And I started getting more business from doing the thing that I was a hobby. So it was like, everything, I'm always prospecting, right? So my boundaries have evolved over time. And I think the short answer, I took the long way, but the short answer is maybe you don't have close boundaries as a new agent and they expand over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of deals that I've personally gone through that I'm like, man, if I could go back in time, I'd be like, you know what? This is Aileen.
Yeah, exactly.
She's fantastic, like maybe take a referral, something like that. But as a newer agent or even, seasoned agents with the difference in technology, it's changed so much. So people have had to revamp their business, change their prospecting plan, things like that. And I agree with you. It changes over time. And one thing you mentioned that I think is amazing is that you have a great support system. Having a support system when you're a realtor or a broker is very key. So I applaud to that. Shout out to your wife for letting you golf all the time. But I think
during business hours.
Yes. But it's we can't know. It's kids' time after that. But I think that has a key part in just being a business owner in general, from the outside looking in. Yeah, we have commission checks and stuff, but they don't see the amount of hours that we're clocking in. They don't see all of the prospecting that we do during the day, setting up appointments, working with other agents, coordinating inspections. Like, that's kind of a lot. But your general consumer is just like, oh yeah, you make a lot of money. You're like, okay, well, if you calculate it, it's like maybe 5 cents.
I think you got that on point there because not everyone is for you. And then I think the best thing to do as a new agent is like you want to take on everybody, but it's for a price, right? It's a lot of headaches, stress. I think the best thing to do is refer them to an agent who will match that person's personality, then they can work together. And
I think especially with all the changes recently in the last couple years, the value of the core of the business has really just been kind of questionable, right? Unless you come from a very corporate broker or, you were taught that from a mentor or something like that, you get your license and you're just like in the wild. Like you just guess your way through there, maybe take some CE classes, maybe join a brokerage that you heard about, but there's not like a checklist or a blueprint as far as like how to be successful, what you're supposed to do. And what I've learned in my business is that the big thing that was happening last year is that agents don't talk.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that's a big core piece of my business is like having that long-term relationships with other agents and working well with them together because there's more than enough business to go around.
Yep. I agree.
Now that you've been in this industry for some time now, had you been a new agent again, what would you want to share that you would have done when you first started?
Oh man, this is such a good question. I used to joke about this all the time. If I was a new agent and I was starting over again, the exact strategy that I would use to go from zero to at least $500,000 a year in commissions would be literally doing an open house every single day. If I got my license today, I knew nothing and I wanted to start an open house, I didn't know exactly what to do. I don't have any resources. I don't have any money. I would borrow open house signs like I did when I first started. And I would do one every day. And I would pick one house. I would not house hop. I would find a home that was easily accessible in a price point in an area that I wanted to. And I would do that open house every day. And here's what's going to happen from that open house. You may not get a client. You'll trip and fall into a deal or a client that's qualified. But you may not know what to do with them. But here's what will happen. You'll know every single thing there is to know about the house. So what that comes with is product knowledge. So now you can speak to the home. You know the street and then you'll probably meet some neighbors. Now you can speak to what it's like to experience the neighborhood. Then on top of that, you have the consistency of doing something every single day. So now you built another habit. And then on top of that, if you do trip and fall into a client that's actually interested, in my first year, I did 144 open houses.
Wow.
And exactly. And then I actually, in 4 times in that year, I did an open house. A person that came to the open house without an agent bought the home. And they say the probability is less than 0.1% of the time that will happen. I did it 4 times in 1 year just by being there.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing, right? So if I was starting over, that's exactly what I would do. And even now, I started doing 90 open houses in 90 days.
Wow.
And I would do that at the end of the year because that would always set up my Q1. And then I've perfected how to show a home, my presentation, and then my sales skills improved from the thousands of conversations that I had with people, with complete strangers. Right. So there's so many ancillary opportunities and different skills that you learn from just committing to doing one thing. Right. And I've tried everything, literally everything. I've ads, cold calling, door knocked. I've been chased by dogs. I spent thousands on direct mail, every campaign, every software that you can think. I've tried everything. But this is what I would do.
So you mastered your open house craft because they said, try this, try that. But you stuck to open houses and you mastered it, and you had a routine to stick to. You had a good lead system, follow-up system with your open house process. And you were able to get a lot of clients from that. I guess I had to learn how to be a little bit more purposeful with the open houses that we're selecting.
Correct.
Like if you wanted to be in a certain price point. Did you have a specific neighborhood or price point that you started off with?
Yes. So I started in Summerlin South, and then I moved to Summerlin West, and but I always added. So once I started selling multiple homes in the same community, in the same neighborhood, then I started, all right, what if I can do this in multiple neighborhoods? And that was my strategy, and that's how I started to expand. I actually don't think I've ever talked about this, but the best open house strategy and to have intention behind the houses that you select also have to do with your standards and your commitment to what you want. So I was very clear on what I wanted. I wanted to sell luxury homes close to my house, so I didn't have to go far because I know I had to be home because I wanted to be with my wife and my kids. Right. So if I packed up, I used to put out 35 open house signs. So that's an 8-hour day.
Sheesh, per house?
Per house.
Dang.
You needed those.
And I was doing, no, I'm not joking. And I would do it every day.
Yeah.
Right. So,
that's hard work.
Exactly.
Even just pulling up in the street and dropping it off.
Playing roulette
that's
with
just
it,
one.
in traffic,
like, okay.
you know? Like,
and
am I going to get hit?
Yeah,
Honking
you're like,
at you.
dude, I'm just
Did
trying
you
to
have to
make
bring
my
extra
money.
clothes for that?
Listen, yes. So that's why it's an 8-hour day. I would go set out the signs in shorts and sneakers in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
Right. Put a sign on the open house door, go home and shower, go back to the open house, get dressed. Sometimes I would just be coming in, ties undone, and people would be waiting for me, or they would be calling me, and I'm like, hey, I'm on my way back.
Ooh,
I would show the home.
Change after.
Yep. Then get there, set up the make sure all the lights and everything is on, do my whole thing. Then I would follow up with all my leads before I left the house. Before I leave the house, I start my 12-point follow-up system. That's the thing. That's the key. So then you start the process of like, hey, thanks so much for coming by the open house. Whatever it is that we talked about, I'm going to fulfill that promise.
See?
Right? Most agents don't do that.
No. Yeah, because we tell ourselves we'll do it the next day and it doesn't happen. But that's the reason why you have to have your open house close to home so you can go home, shower, and make it back in time.
Well, when you put on 35 open house signs, and then I graduated, and then I could pay a company to go put out my open house signs. So then I bought my time back. That's another thing. I've always been committed to reinvesting. I haven't touched the open house sign in years.
You didn't know that?
I be out there putting 20 signs by myself.
I really appreciate my open house sign guy, because the day he was not here, if he's out on vacation, I was missing him every single time I put a sign out. I was like, oh my gosh, where is this guy? When is he coming back?
I just learned something today. That's amazing.
Yeah. We don't get paid to put out open house signs.
Yeah,
we don't get paid to lick envelopes and send direct mail.
Oh, I know.
We don't get paid to create digital marketing. That's not a part of the job. That's not in the RPA. That's not what your clients are hiring you for, right? So the highest and best use of my time is spent solving my client's problem. If they have a listing that needs to be sold. I need to be communicating with buyers that are qualified to purchase their home. That's why they're hiring me. If I'm finding a home for a buyer, that's why they're hiring me. They're not paying a part of my commission. There's not an itemized list that says you put out your open house signs and you put out all this other, like there's no section for that, right?
Yeah.
So I want to spend my time in its best use. And that's where a lot of agents go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Busy work where they feel like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard, but it's the most unproductive, right?
Well, and you mentioned a 12-point system. I'm sure agents are kind of new to this 12-point system that you have, and it does come down to systems and process. I love what you said about that. I think that when you get into this industry, depending on, you know, what you did prior to that, they think it's just light work. And it really ain't light work. You know, like agents that I know that are doing really well at high production, have like high producers, they have a lot of listings, like they're busy.
Yeah.
They're busy. Their kids are in sports. They have, you know, spousal, you know, mandatory time too, you know, things like that. It's like we're constantly managing our own life and, you know, our clients' life and figuring out what's best for them. And you're right. There's so many things that you can kind of delegate compared to do it yourself because your time is very valuable. A lot of agents that I know and myself are starting to partner with other agents. How do you, I mean, I know that you have a team of really great people at your office. How do you like kind of pick who you think is someone that could help you out or maybe lean on another agent to, you know, start to grow and get bigger once your leads do start to come in and your systems are working and you're like, oh my gosh, this is one person.
Yeah, I think it comes down to time and the need of leverage. I mean, you know, if I was going back to start over again, I would probably say the max capacity of any teaming up would be another agent, an administrative assistant, a personal assistant, a transaction coordinator, and a marketing person. And I think that's $100 million plus producing team in itself, with a commitment. Like at the point where I started and I didn't have all the kids that I have and all the, you know, the newfound awareness of like, hey, you know, I only have a limited amount of time in life and I don't want to spend my life, you know, that's a whole nother conversation. But I was like, I don't really want the thing that I thought I wanted. You know, I thought I wanted a 250, $500 million team and pushed. I'm like, I don't really want that. Right.
Yeah.
But if I was going back and do it again and I wanted to rebuild it, I would build it that way. And I've teamed up with an agent in my office before on transactions. And I think it just came down to like, you know, I can do this myself, but I don't really want to. I'd rather go, you know, kick it and have a glass of wine with my wife. So like this afternoon, I don't want to show this home. Can you show it? I mean, it's 3:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, and my wife's like, "Hey, you know, I really want to go try this new place." And I'm like, "It's my best friend. Like, I'm gonna go try it too. Let's do it together. Like, you ain't leaving me, you know."
And, like, where are you going?
You know, and I'm like, I get to do that, right? So that's why I'm so grateful for this industry and this business because like, I choose an agent in my office. Like, hey, can you do this? Perfect. Let's split it. As my client, I did all the prospecting. I teed it up. All you got to do is show them. I already booked the appointment. They only want to see one house. I've shown them everything else. So now you get to come along for the ride, but we service each other because my time is worth more than the 50% that I'm giving up.
Absolutely.
You know?
I think time management is probably high tier in things that agents are either actively learning or, you know, I've known agents that have been in the business 25 years are still working on it, and that's fine too, you know, but fine tuning what you really want and maybe that changes over time, and having somebody like a spouse or a friend or a family member that can kind of like bring it into reality, because I think that we speak another language. Like we speak real estate, like they don't really know like APR or, you know, down payment or points and things like that. And I think for, you know, just in the industry in general, clients lean on their agents very much. Like the conversation does not end. We are there for their, you know, kids' parties and their bridal showers and, you know, their forever long-term relationships that we have with these people. And sometimes I think some agents that maybe work part-time or maybe they're not, you know, they had a hard year last year or things like that, their value starts to change. And then maybe a consumer has experienced something like that. And then, you know, an agents like us, we would come in and we're like, well, what did we do to you? You know, like when you prospect them and talk to them over the phone, it's not always a nice conversation. So I think as agents that are seasoned, we kind of understand that, you never really know what the consumer is going through, and that we're just here to help. And if we can help, we can. But if not, there's other agents in our offices that can match better or match well. But I think when you're a newer agent, it's so hard to say no, right? Because we're commission based.
I think this is something that will help a lot of agents. It doesn't matter if you're a new agent or a seasoned agent. If you can understand that nobody is waking up in the morning saying, how can I make sure that I help Roszettie and Sam and Aileen hit their goals and make sure that they get their commission on time and they don't even have to wait for their broker? What client is waking up saying that? None of them.
None of them.
As soon as you understand that it's not about you and the client isn't waking up to see, I got to make sure I sign this listing agreement so that they can make sure they got their deal, right? They can hit their goals. It's not about us. As soon as you understand that that is how it is, the sooner you can start leaning in and empathizing with the aspect of the craziness of our lives is not the same thing that they go through. They got kids, they got their own business, they got their own work, their own stuff. Everybody has a thing that they're struggling with. Everybody has a problem that they're trying to solve. And if you can accommodate that personality type with a solution that fits their lifestyle and the stars align, great, you get a commission check. If not, don't take it personal, because they're not thinking about you. And most of the time, they don't even, we're a necessity. That's why we were open during COVID, right?
Yeah.
People need a place to live and they hate dealing with real estate agents because most suck, but they got to deal with this, right? So it's like, the sooner you can just get that and empathize with them, and most of the agents that have never purchased a home don't understand how challenging it is to go through the process yourself while dealing with everything else. It's terrible. It's awful. Right? So now you're in the industry running your business, and everything else that has to happen, the lender still need those docs. You still need to schedule an inspection. You know, now,
did you check your email?
Exactly. Check your email. And then now you're like, oh my God. Be the client, understand their perspective. Right?
Yeah.
I think that'll help a lot of agents if they can just get that in their head.
Yeah. I work with a lot of buyers in new construction, and my biggest thing that I always tell my clients is take this time and actually enjoy it, because this is going to be a roller coaster ride of things. You never know what's going to be out there. The market is changing, which is great, but I think our professionalism in our industry in the last couple years have really narrowed down how to continue that. I think there are a lot of part-time agents out there. I know we've lost a lot of locals, but I think it's probably because, one, it's a lot easier to get your license now, maybe here than compared to other states, and two, the regulation on the practice, right? When it comes to dealing with transactions and the community is involved, they're always first to come to us because we get the money from the transaction, but not all the time was our value not seen, right? So it's very tough for agents, especially in this society today. I mean, it's Vegas, right? Something's happening all the time, to kind of explain our value or really explore what we are doing for them, because I don't think a lot of the time, especially if a part-time agent, they don't even know what their value is. They're just like, here's this listing presentation, and there you go.
You're just doing the activity.
Yeah, I'm like, my clients would be like, what's that?
For sure. Exactly.
So it's interesting, because I think your story is so great because you've worked your butt off to get there. And I think sometimes from the outside looking in, people might not always see that, right? Because you do value your time with your family, as do we. And, they don't see the hard work, the crying, the on the phone with the title, if it's a probate, there's a lot of other things that your agent does for you that we keep to ourselves. So, to the clients out there that, have realtors as their friends and stuff, we got to pray for them, because not all the time do they see what happens behind the scenes. Because we take the L for a lot of them,
But I think we should, as agents, let the buyers know or the sellers know what we're going through, so that they know how hard we really are working for them. If there was a problem behind the scenes and you went to go fix it and let your clients know, have you ever let your client know, this is actually what we had to do behind the scenes to see this deal?
I guess I'll speak from a place of recent I guess you could say, pivots. I have sellers that would like to sell their home that currently aren't on the market and they're not ready to. But they would like to transact at some point, right? So through the relationship. And several of these sellers that hired us because of our network and our ability to leverage our skill set, our data, etc. Now with the recent changes, we are not allowed to market pocket listings. We can't have pocket listings, right? So it's a whole thing. So now the value proposition that we once had has now been diminished. What do you do? So explaining that to the client in a way that they understand it over and over and over again is one thing, but then also being able to go to them and say, I am going to do X, Y, and Z to mitigate and offset the lack of value that was. I'm going to replace it with something else. And to your point where you said most people don't see behind the scenes and I've worked so hard. Yes, that's true. I have worked hard, but I'm not an anomaly. I'm no exception to the rule. There's a million Sam Colemans that had their back against the wall and they persevered and they overcame. If you're an agent and you're struggling and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know where my next deal is coming from. I don't know how I'm gonna pay my bills. You're in the best place possible. And I can say this because from a place of experience, when there's too much month left at the end of the money, I've been there multiple times. But when your back is against the wall, the only way you can go is forward. Like that is a place where I pray I never have to go again. But like, that's where this version of me that people are seeing, that's where it was born. It didn't happen tonight. It didn't happen today. You know what I mean? It started back then when I was thinking, I was trying to come up with a way to explain to my wife that I can't buy you flowers on Valentine's Day. My kids can't go to private school. I can't take the vacation. I can't do, you know what I mean? Like that pain produced the man that people see today. Right. And it's not something that I'm like trying to hide or anything. It's like, I just always remember where I come from. And I always remember that this is a gift and it can be gone tomorrow. But if it happened for me, it can happen for anybody else. I just committed to this and I didn't give myself a plan B. There was no other way out than forward, right? And I know a lot of people in this industry, that may not be their story, right? Some people may have had a 2-parent home or, you know, they have a spouse that is successful in a different business and they come from, you know, cool. Right? Everybody's story is different. It doesn't have to be pain to purpose and struggle to triumph, right? It could just be like, I go to Pilates every day and I'm really cool with people and I actually really like this and I have value that I can provide to people. That's cool, right? Like, it doesn't really matter, but I'm no exception to the rule and neither is anybody else, right? You don't have to be God's gift to real estate to make it in this business.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you mentioned the Pilates thing, there's an agent for everyone.
For sure.
Like, you're going to align with someone that values your wants and your needs because they're always different. And they're just able to explain it a little bit better. Communication is a big thing. And I think for consumers, it's tough sometimes because I think I hear more often than not, like, oh, well, I used another agent. I'm like, good. If you had a good connection with them and you really had a great, like, experience with them, like, I think that from the outside looking in, they think that we're like rivals or something. Like, nah, I saw these people like last week, you know, they're really great.
We're here to support each other.
Yeah, we're here to support each other. We're here to lean on each other. And I think that with the changes in the last couple of years, it's drawn us to come back to this place to really just how can we help each other, you know, because we've been there, right? Maybe there's an agent that's been in the industry for a long time and they see your success and they've been following you and your success. Like, they're going to be more motivated that there is an end of the line or there is a, you know, a crossroads or a light at the end of the tunnel, you know? And I think as business owners in general, it's tough. There are things that can happen that are outside of our control. You know, there are obligations that, you know, sometimes it just happens, healthcare, things like that. So as realtors, we really are that phone call when, you know, things are bad, or the phone call when, you know, you got to move or things like that. And it's really tough for the consumers to understand a little bit more about us and all of the problems that, you know, we hear that we take on. And all we do really is find solutions.
Yeah. That's because I think the reason that the consumer doesn't understand the full scope of what a realtor actually does is because the realtor doesn't know how to convey value, and they're only focused on the transaction. And they've taken the humanization out of the deal itself. And people, like, sales in general is a psychological and emotional, but mostly logical game. We said Pilates, for example. We go to the same Pilates studio. I have a home to sell, and I choose you because for whatever reason, we go to the same classes over the same amount of time. So now we have a common there's rapport, right? We're now peers because we go to the same place. And then we were in a parking lot. You say, well, where do you live? I live in Summerlin. I live in Summerlin too. Oh, you got kids? Oh, you got the Faith Lutheran sticker. My kids go to Faith Lutheran too. And now this series of unintentional sales, they call it getting to the yes. We have all these commonalities, and now they choose you regardless of what your skill set in the profession is. Then the client and the customer suffers later when they understand that the commonality that brought you guys together is the reason that there is no value proposition on the other end of that, because you have your license, but you're at Pilates at 9 a.m. when the agent that doesn't have time for Pilates, that can service their needs because they're making phone calls talking to people at 9 a.m. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's an interesting dynamic when you come to a transaction where a client has had a bad experience with an agent, and it's most of the time it's, I didn't have a good experience with this agent because of X. And it stems back to, they didn't have a value proposition. They thought they were cool. Now the relationship and the friendship ends because of the transaction. And it was negligence on the agent's part, not doing the job or understanding the value and the commitment and the responsibility of dealing with the person in this industry. And then the ignorance that the consumer has, where it costs them the relationship. So if you wanted to make, I said it like this, if you wanted to make $1 million a year, but you only make 100,000, it's costing you $900,000 to not know how to make $1 million, right? Because of the ignorance. So there's a challenge and a problem on both parts, right? Agents need to educate themselves, understand their value, and convey that properly to the client and the consumer. And the consumers, the curtain needs to be pulled back and say that, hey, this is what you should be expecting from your realtor. Like if you go to the doctors, if you go to a personal injury lawyer, you know that you're getting a personal injury lawyer. If you go to a foot doctor, you're going to a foot doctor. You hire a realtor, you don't know what the heck you're getting until it's too late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't even think they know how to interview realtors.
No, exactly, because for
They're
so
just like,
long, we've hid behind the board and the MLS and all the,
You're like, I saw your post on social media. What can you do for me?
Exactly.
And you're like, the amount of times I've
been on the commission. Their eyes is focused on like, well, how much do I pay you?
Yeah.
Can you be my discount realtor?
For sure.
I always like to say all agents don't walk the same path.
No.
And I think that it really just depends on who you were mentored by, who you were trained from, and not all agents always get that, which is why I love the communities that I've been a part of over the last few years since I've been licensed since 2018 or 2019. I think that it really adds value just to be around people that are actively doing it, doing the work, have a 12-point system, maybe doing open houses every week, because it's kind of frustrating for a newer agent or even a seasoned agent, like you said, that can value this, that what they're doing is not working, instead of re-looking at it as like, I need to do something else.
Yeah.
Like if this isn't working for me, then maybe this is not something that is like going to generate more income for me. I need to start doing maybe more open houses. The weather is getting great this week. Like we need to be doing more open houses, or really align with your business plan and figure out what that is, because most of the agents that I know that are super successful start from nothing. Yeah. And it's kind of like, people that do get into the business, most of the time they do it for the money.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I got into the business because I figured out what 3% of $1 million was. And then I was like,
let me do the math real quick.
My first sale was $205,000. My third or fourth sale was $1 million. I was like, 30,000, 5,500. Give me more of these 30s, bro.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's really where I just said, this is where I'm gonna spend all of my time. But I said, I'm only going to do this thing. And that narrow focus is why, it worked. It all works. Everything works.
Yeah.
if you just stick to it for the most part, right?
I know that most of the people that I got my license with, I don't think they're in the business anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one, because when markets shift, you got to go with it. You got to shift with it.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what you can do for yourself, for your business, to continue to stay in it and stay in the game.
Here's what's interesting, though. In 2020, 2021, and 2022, when the market took off, just like in 2005, 6, and 7, and 95, 96, 97, there were agents that were crushing it that then failed. But there were agents that did terrible those years and market peaks, but then survived thereafter. So I always, when people ask me, how's the market? I always say it depends. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is, right? Yeah. My segment of the market is selfish. I know that I'm going to do a certain amount of production. I don't care what the market is. I'm just going to pivot and figure out what I need to do in that particular market. So my market is always good because I look at the market through a lens of prosperity and abundance. I don't look at it through a lens of lack. I don't like to be around agents that talk about, oh, interest rates, interest rates are going up, interest rates high. Oh man, man, the market is crazy. Trump, the president now, and he, Uncle Joe.
There's always something.
There's always something, right?
I'm like waiting. Like, let me wait until after the presidency.
Take all the buyer's dad. Take all that stuff and hand it to your mortgage company on the first and see what it gets you. It doesn't matter. It's worth nothing, right? You're entitled. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I've been yapping for the last 30, 45 minutes. This is my opinion. Nobody has to agree with me. I've formulated my own belief system and how this industry is and what I believe that it is, and it's mine. And I have to take this with me to my last breath. Formulate your own. Yeah. If you think the market's hard, then it's hard. If you think the market's on fire, then it's on fire. If you think this is all a bunch of BS, then it's all a bunch of BS. If you think that you can take this and learn it and go build a business, it'll happen for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for myself, I pray things into fruition. I'm really dived into my business plan every day. And I think sometimes it's the basics. It's not always something that, someone's just doing ridiculously good. Maybe the open houses thing. I'm going to need some help with that. But the calling, the prospecting, checking on your accounting. How is your business doing? Have you done all the things that these high producers are doing? Because they're not most of the time.
Well, I think that's why all realtors need to come together March 13th at 1 o'clock, LVR, because we can learn from Sam and a lot of those other great agents that we have on the panel. And because it doesn't really matter what's happening in the market. Like you said, it really does matter on these activities that you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis.
The greatest gift of this entire tenure of being in this industry is finding out and becoming more aware of this. And that's the grind doesn't promise a guarantee. So I am very good at doing the work and grinding. But there's no guarantee that the thing at the end, the carrot that you think is dangling in front of you at the finish line will be there.
Yeah.
So why waste your time grinding away to get something that will still be there even when you're gone? That epiphany and that mindset shift is a part of what started to happen for me. And then business actually got way more simpler. And it came a lot more easier when I wasn't trying to force I'm gonna go get a deal. I want to break into luxury. People want to break into luxury when it's like, no, I want to become the person that does luxury.
Yes.
Right.
Well, you are.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to have you on the panel because it's going to be a fun day.
Yeah. You're crushing it.
I'm grateful.
You've come a long way.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm excited and I'm grateful. This has been awesome. I appreciate you guys inviting me on this panel. I don't feel like I am that significant or I have much information that'll be useful.
That is not true.
More than the other panelists. I'm just a realtor just like everybody else. I'm going through it just like everybody else. But if you feel the need to be inspired or take some of the things that I've done that has worked for me, you feel like they can work for you, great. And on the 13th, I'll share those things and we can deep dive and hopefully the other panelists will as well.
I am grateful for your time and I look up to you in your business and everything that you do. I learned that you can hire people for open houses today, so I found out some really good skills from Sam Coleman.
There's my little nugget. There's my little nugget.
But now I'm excited to follow your podcast and all the work that you've been doing. catch you on your day in the life of Sam Coleman.
Yeah, for sure.
I just think sometimes, people forget we're humans and that we're people and we have families and, we have the same struggles just like everybody else. If anything, we take on more liability, more responsibility. So I'm hoping for, a drive of community within our agents and our industry because, we're here to work together and just help our clients and go from there because it's a tough market sometimes for some people. They don't always want to sell, but they do or they need to or maybe buying and stuff. And Vegas is growing. So it's going
to happen March 13th, 1 o'clock.
So Sam Coleman is going to be one of the panelists at our next YPN meeting.
Here at the Las Vegas Realtors office on March 13th at 1 p.m. Lunch will be provided.
We'll see you there.